Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', fantasy champs? My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always.
What's up?
Excited to be back. Took a small break.
Yeah.
And by break, I mean we really didn't take any break. We just couldn't record a third show, so we recycled the information.
Yeah, I went on a vacation.
He went on a vacation, and by that he means he did a bunch of homework.
Yeah, and gambled on sports.
I was gonna get my Red Sox cap on today.
Yeah.
If this show actually goes out on Thursday, first day of the MLB season.
Yeah, it's opening day.
And I'm gonna put a solid bet on the Boston Red Sox to win the AL East.
What are they, plus 10,000?
All right. Probably.
I mean, they can't be the favorites.
This should be interesting. I haven't watched a full baseball game since they changed the rules. This is what we're talking about. The NBA season, NHL season's coming to a close, and when your team's really friggin' good, you don't really have to pay attention at the end of the season. So, kind of just boring at this point. And
it's true.
I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for a lot of things to happen.
Yeah, but if our hockey and basketball teams weren't going to make the playoffs, that means we'd probably be already done with it by now, and we'd just be super excited for baseball to start.
Oh yeah. I think Rick and I's both of our anticipation lies on one thing though.
And when that one thing is
the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Good segue. We are going to start talking about the draft, which means a couple of rookie mocks, some wide receiver, running back rankings, all kinds of stuff. And then as we get through this, we'll jump into the actual NFL draft and recap some winners and losers based on landing spot. Should be really interesting. After that happens, nothing happens for a very long time.
Yep.
Except for us talking about as many draft things as we can get our hands on. Not NFL draft, but fantasy drafts as we prepare for those.
So, yeah, I mean, the next month plus will just be about the NFL draft pretty much, won't it?
Yeah, pretty much. We're very close. It's currently the 30th or beyond. So 1 month out from the NFL draft. Yep. I'm very excited. The NFL draft is like the biggest spectacle after the Super Bowl that involves the NFL. And it's good to see all the young kids come in. I hate how people talk about these guys. Like, oh God. Most of them don't make an immediate impact till like year 3.
This guy is the next Tom Brady.
Yeah. I got some stuff to say about quarterbacks in particular today.
Okay.
But anyway, because I think we need to chat about the process here.
Okay.
People get bothered for specific things. But anyway, today we're going to talk about our top 5 rookie quarterbacks going into this draft. And obviously we'll have this compare it to post-draft and where these guys fall. Generally, the quarterbacks end up in the same position just because they all have the same skill sets, but sometimes they'll move based on landing spot. So, we'll see what happens. Before we jump into that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave your review. Share the podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. Like and comment down below. You ready to get into the preface?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember a couple years, because last year's quarterback class was about as abysmal as it could get, and we ranked quarterbacks, and it just didn't matter.
I think I had Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett as like potential first round picks, and nobody else was like even a first or second round pick in my eyes. And
what's his name didn't even like he played a couple of games. I can't remember if he started a game, Malik Willis, but he's just not either not there yet or not good. So and I do love you, Malik Willis, but And then there's a couple of guys like Howell might start this year for Washington. They've talked about
Ritter.
him being Ritter might start for Atlanta. So there's a couple of guys, but just based on year one, I don't see there being a whole hell of a lot of success for any of these guys outside of Kenny Pickett.
There's definitely not going to be. It doesn't feel like there's at least a top 10 guy in last year's class. There might be a starter or two, but.
So I want to take us back in the time machine.
Okay.
To the Trevor Lawrence draft.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Trevor Lawrence, generational talent.
Yep.
Justin Fields got the legs of a Greek god.
Yep. He was both our QB2s.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he was my QB2, but yeah, I had him split with Zach Wilson, so that should, tell you how.
I would say we missed on Trey Lance. I had doubts about him just because, like, when you watched back then, when you watched him on film, it was like, there's a lot.
I don't think he missed on Trey Lance.
There's a lot.
You were pretty right.
There was a lot to like work on with him. I don't think like if you gave him time, I don't think he would suck, but he just needed time. And obviously we didn't even get to
I don't think the door is shut on him either, though. Right. Like some people.
I don't either. I think there's still time for him to kind of figure it out. But
he's only played 3 NFL games.
I know, it's unbelievable. And it's like you're going into year 3. Like this is gonna be like Jordan Love at this point. So if you invested high draft capital in Trey Lance,
he needs to be given a fair year.
So unknown there. And then there's 2 quarterbacks left outside of that, Zach and Mac Jones. And I love Mac Jones, benefit of the doubt. To be fair, he was my 5th guy, or my 4th guy, with Trey Lance being 5th. Is that correct? I can't remember.
Yeah, and I had those 2 flip-flops.
Yeah, you had them flip-flop. So, Mac Jones. So to be honest with you, there is based on like watching Mac Jones in college, I liked him and I like him for the NFL far more than I like him for fantasy football in any aspect because he provides no rushing floor. He's going to be, a guy that maybe scores 15 fantasy points a week. And if he gets a good matchup, he might be able to put up 20, but I just don't think he's going to be a quarterback that you can use in fantasy football on a regular basis, especially in like dynasty formats. So like
he's a QB2. You can use him as a QB2.
Yeah, you could be using him as a QB2 if you're in a super flex league. But so I don't even like for NFL purposes, Mac Jones, I still think the jury's out for him. He's kind of in the same box with Trey Lance. He had one good year, one bad year. So this is the kind of do or die year, similar to like last year for Tua. But the real quarterback that I wanted to hit on that everyone just swung and missed was Zach.
Yeah,
he sucks. He's not good, and
he is.
Such a clown. I remember I ranked Justin Fields number 2 in that class specifically because, I thought Zach Wilson mentally wasn't there. Like everything that I heard was not good. Like he had the physical tools, but the mental side of it was just not there. He seemed like, a cocky kid whose family owned 4 boats. That's kind of how he's played in the NFL. And he just, he makes some ridiculous throws. If you look up his highlights on YouTube, there's plenty of them with the Jets too, where you're just like, wow. And then he just makes so many bonehead decisions. So it's like, and it forced the Jets to be like, you know what? We're done. We're moving forward with another guy. We're going to go after Aaron Rodgers. My whole point of bringing this past draft up was I wanted to look at our mistakes as we move into this year to talk about some of these quarterbacks. There's a lot of really good ones, but Zach Wilson is one of those guys that you need to watch out for. He's a guy that has a slingshot freaking cannon of an arm that can make a ton of the throws. But something that he lacks and something that he's missing, which I don't know that you can teach people at this point. You can try to teach them it, but it's an intangible, it's a mental intangible that that quarterbacks have coming into the NFL that allows them to do the things like Patrick Mahomes, elitely athletic, makes ridiculous throws left and right, but he's also very smart when it comes to football. And if you don't have the football IQ or the mental intangible, you're just screwed. And I think that's what happened with Zach Wilson. And everyone fell in love, including the New York friggin' Jets, fell in love with his pro day video where he threw a sidearm 75 yards. And Rick,
I love that.
I was like, holy crap, that was nice. But I can't stand how people get freaking all hot and bothered about freaking training camp videos and, combine, obviously combine's exciting to watch, but combine workouts and freaking, pro days and all of the stuff where guys are throwing it sideways and they have pre-scripted pro days. They're fun to watch. It's just everything. You have to understand, everything is scripted. He knows the throws he's going to throw before he gets there, and he's been practicing them for weeks.
So what does it mean for the guys that do have bad pro days, though? The quarterbacks that have bad pro days?
Oh, not good. Not good stuff. But they could still have success.
Yeah, I think Teddy Bridgewater, if I remember correctly, had a bad pro day. He ended up being an okay NFL quarterback.
Yeah. But, so I think that there's just things that you have to look at outside of what the athletic ability of a player is. And, there are sometimes going to be N'Keal Harry is a great example of that. Patriots drafted him, and he ended up being dumb as a rock. He's very athletic. He just doesn't have that mental intangible.
He's not that fast.
And he's not that fast either. But we all had him as a 101 wide receiver in that class. So
I don't think I did.
You might not have. Okay.
I did like him, though. I'm not going to say I didn't like him. I remember being happy with the pick.
Yeah. So, but just specifically with the quarterback position, try to, watch all that stuff, see if they can make the throws, because I think that's a great way to see, okay, can they make the throw? Can they make an NFL throw? You might not be able to tell fully at a pro day, but watching film in conjunction with that stuff, do they have an NFL arm and can they make NFL throws? That's a great, base floor that you can look at, and then you have to look at the other things in film where it's is this guy smart enough to make these throws? Do they have a tendency to do really dumb things? Which if you flicked on Zach Wilson's film, you would see very quickly he'd do these really dumb things because he was trying to be Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. And it's and that leaked over into the NFL game. So if you see some of that stuff, Rick tampered me out of hating Zach Wilson a little bit at the end of that year, but that is a preface to this discussion that we'll have about rookie quarterbacks here. Any thoughts on that, Rick?
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. I'll say I learned to settle down a little bit because of Zach Wilson.
Don't get too late.
So there's still a lot that goes. I think that's the biggest key, though, too, is there is a lot that goes into it. It's not like it's a couple things. It's the mental side of it. The physical side of it still obviously has big implications. It's situational as well. Who are they playing? What's going on? Why did this? When you see, bad plays, it's also or good and bad plays. Mm-hmm. It's not only that they were able to do it, it's how it happened. Why did it happen?
Yeah.
Mechanics too. There's just a lot that goes into truly evaluating quarterbacks.
Yeah, and one of the guys that scared me coming out was the year before, Justin Herbert.
Yep.
Because when you looked at him, his mechanics were good, but he had these weird tendencies. He ball flipped every time he snapped it. He would flip the ball in his hands. And it's what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Now that's teachable. You can tell them don't do that. But if you do that for long enough over your lifetime, that's going to mess up your rhythm.
Right.
And so it didn't end up affecting him, and he's a great quarterback in the NFL. But
so we've seen it go both ways.
We've seen it go both ways, but there's definitely things to see on film. And there's obviously going to be busts and different stuff like that, but, and you can't always nail everything, but I think you have to take everything into account when you're, we don't get to meet with these kids. We don't get to sit here and have conversations with them. We're just doing dynasty and fantasy football stuff. So we can only see externally and on film what we see. And so we'll try to give you to the best of our abilities what we've seen from some of these quarterbacks. But anyway, and I think I'm going to throw in the PFF rank as well for these guys, just to give keep it in perspective.
Is it the college rank?
No, this is this is their NFL draft big board.
Oh, it's their draft big board.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I got special access.
I'm not the biggest PFF guy, though.
I pay for PFF.
I'm going to preference that.
Okay.
Except offensive line.
Yeah, it's just their grades. So I'll tell you the grades as we go about it. But anyway, so Rick and I have the same list for the first four guys, and then the fifth guy.
My 1, 2 though are super close.
Okay.
Like probably the closest. I think they could flip flop easily. But as of right now, yeah, our 1 through 4 is the same.
Okay. And I can definitely see why you would say that, because they are very, very close.
Yeah.
But anyway, first quarterback, number 1 on both of our lists right now is Bryce Young of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Very interesting quarterback. I've watched him. They draft him, man. They recruited him in Mac's first year starting. So his freshman year was Mac's last year at Alabama. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So he did not participate at the combine, and I don't believe he threw at the combine, correct?
I don't think he did.
I can't remember.
I don't know.
But he didn't do any of the workouts. So what we have here is just high school workouts. So he doesn't obviously jump off the screen in terms of what he was doing in high school, but that was 3 years ago, so I don't know if his 40 times are any different. And I would imagine that he'll probably do some of this stuff at Alabama's pro day if that hasn't happened yet. So just keep an eye on that stuff just to get physical stuff. But he was measured at the combine. He's 5'10", 204 pounds with a hand size of 9 3/4.
And even the 205? Is that what I said?
Yeah, 205.
He did everything possible to bulk up for that. So I don't think he's even like an actual 205. I think he's probably under 200.
Won a Heisman at Alabama. Finished 23-4. And he's the 8th winningest quarterback in school history. He basically met all expectations. The only thing he didn't do at Alabama, which Alabama typically does a lot of, is win a national championship.
Yep.
He did not win a national championship. Is that right? Georgia won it 2 straight years. Yeah. So
he didn't win one.
So anyway, Bryce Young is a very interesting quarterback prospect, and I don't think he's nearly as good as Trevor Lawrence.
Agreed.
I wouldn't put him, like, if I had to go back into that previous draft class, I would take him over Justin Fields.
Okay.
Just as like a prospect, forget about what he's done in the NFL so far. But as a prospect, I would take Bryce Young over Justin Fields. So he would have been my second quarterback back in that class if he was in that class. Last year, he obviously would have been the one, and this year, he is projected to be the one. I don't know if he's going to go first overall to Carolina. Carolina has talked about trading out. So very interesting stuff there. But
I don't think there's no way they actually do it. Trade out.
But just from the base watching film, Bryce Young looks really, really, he looks really, really good. He is a terrific pocket passer. In terms of just standing in the pocket and throwing. Like if you watch his pocket presence when you're just watching film, there are times where he'll make some throws and he'll know where to move in the pocket that's just elite. And usually, I would say the last 3 or 4 Alabama quarterbacks that come out, Tua, Jalen Hurts, Hurts maybe not, but Tua, Mac Jones, they both have that ability to move around the pocket fairly effectively. And I would actually say, do you remember when Tua was everything everybody wanted? Tank for Tua. Remember that?
Yep.
2020 tank for Tua. Tua Tagovailoa, I look at Bryce Young kind of in a similar light. Like, they're kind of similar players to me play style-wise because Tua doesn't run. Bryce Young has an ability to run, but, you know, it's not like he's not going to rush for 500-600 yards. So he is very good in the pocket, though. He has great pocket presence. He gets out of the pocket. I was talking to Rick before this. He's like, play style-wise, he's similar to Mahomes, just very short. So, like, I would say similar styles in terms of that. I don't think he has the ceiling of Mahomes.
No,
I don't think he has the ability to become the number 1 or number 2 quarterback in the NFL, but I definitely think he has the capability of being 5 to 10, if you want to talk ceilings. And I think for fantasy football purposes, there's enough there that he could put up good fantasy numbers. Rushing wise, he had in 2022, he had 185 rushing yards. He had 0 in 2021 in his first year starting. So I don't know if that means anything, but if he's going to get like 200 yards rushing a season, that adds a little bit of a base floor, kind of similar to like Ryan Tannehill when he's had success in fantasy football. So there are some good things for Tua here in terms of what he does, but it's the same style system that they've been running for years. You know, Mac Jones was right around 8.5 to 9 yards per attempt. That's where, you know, Bryce Young was in college. So like, you know, whoever takes him, you know, he has a really good arm, strong throws, all of that stuff. You'll see it all on film. The reason why he's going number 1 overall, most likely. But
CJ Stroud is the betting favorite right now.
Is he really?
Yep.
Okay.
To go first overall.
All right, Bryce. Who's second? Who's second overall in that?
Houston.
All right. Oh God. I don't know if I want that. But anyway, so I like him, you know, for these rankings, by the way, are for fantasy football. So if there's some guys that are not there or some guys that are there, you know, it's because we're ranking them for fantasy football. But I think this guy has the best chance of all of the players coming out to have a really good upside for fantasy football. There are some guys that might not be able to start right away and stuff like that, but I like Bryce, you know,
Bryce will probably start week 1.
He'll probably start week 1, and he'll probably provide for fantasy football immediately, and I think he has the highest ceiling to provide the most fantasy points for you if you're doing a dynasty draft. So I really like Bryce Young. I've liked him since he came into the league. I watched pretty much all of his 2021 games. I've watched some of his 2022 games. So he's a very, very good player. I think he's probably the safest bet at 1, which is why I take him over that. I also would not preface this so I can let Rick go and talk about Bryce Young, but I don't believe in the hand size like shortness thing. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think it's complete nonsense. I think it's something that's hyped up and talked about. I think it is difficult for a quarterback who doesn't have as good a skill set as Bryce Young does, who is short, like Bailey Zappi, the Patriots. If you're short and you're drafted in the 4th to 7th round, then you're probably not going to have NFL success. But like, if you're Bryce Young and you have the skill set of Bryce Young, you can makes up for the height differentiation. And you see the guy, it's not like he was playing for a smaller school. You know, it's not like he was playing for NDSU like Trey Lance. Right. The offensive linemen are twigs and short. So, and everyone's going to come in the comments and be like, the NDSU offensive linemen are not short. Whatever. But Alabama has the biggest boys coming out of college for offensive linemen. They're NFL offensive linemen. And Bryce Young was throwing over those guys. So I don't want to hear no nonsense about Bryce Young not being able to throw over the offensive line. That's not the problem. It's the ability to – Drew Brees did this. He had the ability to anticipate throws.
Yes.
And Bryce Young can do that. Drew Brees can do that. Not saying he's going to be Drew Brees, but if you're short and you have anticipation and know where your receiver is going to be, you're going to be able to make those plays. And you can see it on film where the shortness affects it if the route's not run right or something's not right on the play.
Which will happen.
But the good thing about Bryce Young is that he can do something that Drew Brees couldn't, and he can get out of the pocket and make a play. And so if he can do that, the pocket collapses or he can't see, he just rolls out and figures it out. So I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. He's one for me. And if you're in a super flex league, you need to take a quarterback to start building for the future. Bryce Young's your guy.
Yeah, that's fair. I have Young number 1 as well. I had him at number 2 for the longest time. Pretty much all the end. Right when I started looking at college quarterbacks during the NFL season, I had him at number 2. I had him at number 2 throughout the offseason. But now that I kind of dug into it more and as the offseason goes along, I decided to put him at number 1. I think he impressed me a little bit on film. I thought he was, from what I've seen, I think you've probably dug into it more than I have in terms of like watching the games. But from what I have seen, he impressed me as a passer more than I thought. He was a little more Kyler Murray-like, which he still is. He reminds me a lot of Kyler Murray. But, you know, coming out of college, Kyler Murray was like just a pure athlete, could run around. He had a great arm, but he wasn't like a great pocket passer necessarily. He was a good pocket passer who could run all over the place and was just an athlete. Bryce Young is a better pocket passer than I thought he was.
Yeah.
He's a very good pocket passer, kind of like Tua was, as you mentioned, at Bama. I think he's more mobile than Tua. His straight line speed's probably a little bit better, but he's also like, he moves around in the pocket more than Tua. Tua does in subtle ways. Tua has had great footwork, had a good sense of pressure. Bryce Young has those things, but like Mahomes, as you said, he'll roll out to his right typically. He's able to avoid pass rushers, break tackles. So he has that kind of that mobile trait in a quarterback, but he doesn't really rush too much.
He's not necessarily going to scramble for yards in terms of rushing.
Yeah,
but
he scrambles to make plays with his arm.
Yeah. So he'll run out of the pocket to make a play with his arm.
But he definitely, like, 47 touchdowns in his sophomore year, the 7 interceptions for 48,000 yards is just ridiculous season. And it was a lot of it in the pocket or making plays outside the pocket, but with his arm. So I was impressed watching him with that. He's got I think his mechanics are really good. I was watching a video of a former college coach or NFL coach, it might have been, or quarterback's coach, and he was saying that a lot of guys, you have to like move your shoulders to get a sort of whip on the ball. He doesn't have to do that. He can throw it in any position, and he just gets whip on the ball.
Don't get me all excited.
So yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that I was impressed with. But I do still have my concerns with him. I in the last 3 years with grading quarterbacks, he's definitely better than anyone in the last class for sure.
Yeah.
I think to me he's in the same tier as a Zach Wilson was for me, which looking back on it, it's obviously not good. But I was very high on Zach
But he's
Wilson,
that type of quarterback.
You knew,
like a Justin Herbert,
Justin Fields
as a prospect.
Well.
Just think about it as a prospect.
I think he was, to me, better prospect than Herbert was.
Okay.
But I was lower on Herbert.
Yeah.
A little bit lower. I wasn't like low, but
if this guy was 6'3", 250,
exactly, it would help his case.
People would be there would not be a single concern.
Yeah, I think if you're grading, because I've been grading guys, like I gave Trevor Lawrence an A+. I think Young is like an A-.
Yeah.
And that's what I gave. I think I gave Fields and Wilson both A-. I think Young's about that, which to me is still like worthy of a top 5 pick for a quarterback. So I think he's still worthy of a top 5 pick. He's worthy of being a first overall pick. He's just not like a generational quarterback prospect, because I think being 5'10" and his size does scare me, but it's not because he can't see over the offensive line or anything like that. It's for injuries. If you're under 200 pounds in the court, I mean, we've seen Tua, right?
Yeah.
If you're under 200 pounds, like, I am so scared he's going to just break his leg.
Are you saying if I was a quarterback, I'd get smushed?
Yeah, I mean, I'd get smushed too, probably.
We both get smushed. What are you, like 140?
No, gosh. I used to be.
Yeah.
But at least I got the height, bro. I'm just
there you go.
lengthy.
There you go.
Anyway.
Like Kevin.
Yeah, he does scare you with injuries. And I think that is a concern with his size of getting hurt in the NFL level. If he can stay over 200 pounds, I feel better about it. And I do, me, I like it's kind of those freak athlete quarterbacks, those 6'5" guys that can throw the ball a million yards down the field. I do like who are mobile. Those Patrick Mahomes, those Trey Lance, those kind of guys. And Young isn't that, but he's still a very, very good quarterback prospect.
Yeah. And to segue that into the number 2 guy, Rick does have these two very, very close. But number 2, Rick and I both have C.J. Stroud. Now, I did want to say Bryce Young, obviously number 1 on the PFF rankings. He had a grade of the 9th best quarterback in the country in 2022, and he was the first best quarterback in 2021 as well. He graded basically the same, 92.2 in 2021 and 91.5 in 2022. So probably some younger kids coming up just performing slightly better. But CJ Stroud, they have number 3 among quarterbacks.
Really? They have someone ahead of Stroud.
He was also tied for first in 2021 with Bryce Young. And then in 2022, he had an 88.9, which was 27th. So this year he was slightly worse. Now, there is some concerns with CJ Stroud. Just to go through some of the stuff, I want to see if he did his combine workouts, but he's 21 years old, 6'3", 214 pounds. So I basically just stole his numbers to make an argument or talk about
his comparable on Player Profile is Joe Burrow.
Yeah, dude. So this guy is also a pocket passer. He had 108 passing yards last year. I mean, that would be terrible. 108 rushing yards. He had negative 20 rushing yards in 2021. So he doesn't rush really all that much. He can, like, I could see him running for 150 yards or maybe 200 if you're lucky in a season, but he is definitely a pocket passer. He's a very complete pocket passer. So to me, I think, obviously we know what Joe Burrow is in the NFL. What concerns me more specifically with the type of quarterback that CJ Stroud is, and Bryce Young for that matter, is like, yeah, you might still get a top 10 quarterback in the draft, for Dynasty, which is very good. But like, I've always looked at Joe Burrow's fantasy ceiling as like 5 to 8, with maybe the occasional year where he can jump up to 3 or 4, but I don't think Joe Burrow can finish as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. I don't think he has that ceiling. I don't think Bryce Young or CJ Stroud will have that ceiling. Whereas like guys
unless they throw 55 touchdowns in a year.
Right. Guys like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, like I could see those two guys maybe having a season where they just ascend into that top like 1, 2, or 3. And even Trevor Lawrence might have a tough time doing that because he's also similar to CJ Stroud and Bryce Young in terms of the style of play that he has, but he does like to rush it. So anyway, I don't believe he ran at the combine or did anything either. I don't know if has Georgia had their pro day?
Ohio State.
Ohio State. I always get them mixed up. Ohio State, have they had their pro day yet?
I think they did.
Okay, all right. I don't have any numbers here, so I'm assuming
he said he ran a 4.85, but I don't know if that's high school.
That's high school workouts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway. So he's a very good quarterback. He's a good pocket passer, very similar, just a taller version of Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young is more polished than CJ Stroud is. And I think if you look at like, obviously Bryce Young last year had, what was it? Who was the Alabama wide receivers that went in the first round? My brain is fried.
Jameson Williams.
Was the only one?
Mechie was the second rounder.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about John.
That was it.
So he had a couple of really good receivers to throw the ball to. CJ Stroud was playing with, over the last 2 years, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jegba, Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Those are 4 first-round pick wide receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a first-round pick. Jackson Smith and Jegba is going to be a first-round pick.
People are saying he might even be the first receiver ever first overall if he goes the path that
Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I guess he's like listed at 6'4", 230, and he ran like a 4.3.
Oh dear heavens! Yeah, it'll be my first pick in my Madden drafts in 2024.
Yeah,
but anyway, yeah, he's had some really great talent. I don't like to knock players. I didn't knock Mac Jones. I'm not going to knock CJ Stroud. It's obviously, if you played with less talent, it's more challenging. Both of these quarterbacks have played at really good colleges, so you can't really knock them for the talent that they had around them. But just watching the film for CJ Stroud, he's very accurate. His passes are like when I watch Josh Allen, he throws some seeds, but everything is just like 162 miles an hour. And it's like you're going to break a wide receiver's skull if you're always throwing that hard. CJ Stroud throws extremely hard, and he has good throw power, but it just looks nice. It's very soft.
He throws a lot of catchable balls.
He's
actually very self-aware, which is some guys with strong arms are not.
Yep.
He's very self-aware of like, okay, I got to throw a rainbow here over the linebacker. Mm-hmm. Okay, this I have to whip it as hard as I can to get it in the tight window. But yeah, go ahead. I'll have my turn.
He's a quick processor, so he's able to make those anticipation throws. He knows, if something breaks down, he knows where to go with the ball, stuff like that. Some of the cons that I saw this particular season, he took a step back a little bit because the offensive line got slightly worse. And when he was under pressure this year, he was not good.
Yep.
And when you go into the NFL, presuming that he plays for a team like Carolina or Houston, that could be very bad for CJ Stroud. So, you got to keep an eye on that in terms of coming into the NFL, but I think he's fine. I did read somewhere, I didn't see this on tape too much, but I did read, I think it was on PFF, that his arm does suffer when he tries to make throws on the move. So his accuracy and stuff like that suffers. I didn't see much of it on tape, so go watch tape and figure it out for yourself. Sometimes that can be opinion stuff. But, something to keep in mind moving forward with him. And then he can't really escape the pocket. So this is a very dynamic pocket passing quarterback, but he doesn't have that elite trait to get out, similar to like Bryce Young can get out of the pocket, make a play if he needs to. CJ Stroud can do that, but not at the level of you're going to see in the NFL, like guys like Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, like those guys can make. So that's kind of why I have him second, because I've seen Bryce do it. I don't see CJ Stroud do it as much. Now, I will say that maybe people are saying that specifically because they don't see it on tape. And when you watch his Ohio State. I mean, I'm going to get him mixed up with Georgia again. I'm telling you, this whole entire process. But when you watch his tape from 2021 and 2022, there were situations where his pocket was just completely clean and he never really had to get out of the pocket. He could just sit there and wait and make a play. And if he has a good offensive line, that's really good. When you go into the NFL, that's slightly different. So it's like that is definitely going to change because you're going to be on Carolina. You're going to be in Houston. You're going to maybe be in Indianapolis. And those offensive lines last year weren't the best. So you have to keep an eye on that. But he's elite. He's great. And, I would personally put this guy in the same conversation as a Justin Herbert from that draft, or, maybe maybe I'll say Zach Wilson, similar to what Rick said from the 2022 class. I think he's leaps and bounds better.
In terms of college grades.
Yeah, in terms of college, stuff. Like, in terms of prospects. If you go and look at Kenny Pickett last year, I think he's like 1,400 times better than Kenny Pickett. So, so anyway, I think he's a better quarterback. He's going to go 1 or 2, and if a team falls in love with him, like Carolina, I could see Stroud going to either one of those teams. But I have my slight concerns with him for fantasy football just because he is going to be a pocket passer, so he has a ceiling that's kind of capped out for that. So that's why I'll put him 2. But anyway.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. You can make the argument for some of these other guys to be ahead of Stroud and Young, arguably, in terms of ceiling for fantasy. Mm-hmm. Because the other guys that I think we're going to talk about are much better rushers. Mm-hmm. While Stroud and Young aren't really rushing quarterbacks. But yeah, for the longest time I had Stroud 1. He was my number 1 guy. But yeah, I think some of those concerns are real. The pressure thing is real. He doesn't like collapse under pressure. Like there's been guys who like collapse under pressure, and that's a huge red flag. He doesn't collapse under pressure, but as a pocket passer, he obviously struggles compared to having a clean pocket. Bryce Young, on the other hand, is able to make guys miss more, kind of throw on the run better. Mm-hmm. He's able to get out of the pocket better. And I think that's what separates those two in terms of that. But Stroud is bigger. He doesn't have he has a very good arm, but it's not like he doesn't have like a Josh Allen, Herbert, Zach Wilson, Mahomes arm. He has it's more like a Burrow type of arm, which is still good. But it's not like an A level. It's like an A-B+ level for his arm strength, which is still good. He actually, in some ways, reminds me of Mac Jones sometimes. Mm-hmm. I think he's a better version of it, though. Like he actually had some throws in tight windows that I have not seen very often from college quarterbacks that really
He's extremely
kind of took me back. I had to rewatch a couple times. Like, whoa, like he makes NFL throws a lot. So I think as a pure pocket passer, he's one of the best I've ever seen in college. In the last couple of years, where I've actually started looking at quarterback prospects, I don't know if there's been a better pure pocket passer than C.J. Stroud, in my opinion. Which is high praise, but yeah, in terms of fantasy though, it does, because he's not a rusher, so that does hurt. But I do think he's like a safe bet. So he'll probably be like a low end QB1 for a long time. Like I could see him in like that Dak Prescott range in terms of fantasy. Which if you're like in a dynasty super flex draft, you still want to get that guy. So he's still worthy of being a top 2 or 3 pick in your fantasy drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but another concern is like he really did have a super team of wide receivers, which I know you don't like to hold that against guys, and I try not to hold it against them either, but I do notice it. When you're having 4 first-round wide receivers.
Possibly 5. PFF seems to think there's this younger kid that's going to be another one in like 2 years.
Potentially 5. And that does kind of hurt it a little bit. I will say,
pumping him out.
I don't know if you watched this game, because I didn't watch really much college football at all this year. Yeah. I never do. Yeah. I'm going to be honest.
I don't either.
Even the national championship game I didn't watch, which I usually do, but this year I didn't. But I did watch a little bit, and then I went back and watched the Georgia-Ohio State game, which was the real national championship game. This was in the college football playoff. It was the 1 seed Georgia versus the 4 seed Ohio State, because Georgia went on and played TCU, right, in the national championship.
Yeah.
And they won by like 50 points.
Yeah.
It was a blowout. This game was 42-41, and Ohio State was winning. It took a Georgia field goal as time expired to win the game. They had to come back in the fourth quarter. They were down by like 2 touchdowns. Anyway, C.J. Stroud against the number 1 undefeated Georgia, who went undefeated the whole season, won the national championship. They're going to have the most draft picks. They have an elite offensive line and elite defense. Just a ridiculous college football team. C.J. Stroud against those guys, 4 touchdowns, 350 yards, 0 interceptions. He balled out and almost single-handedly took out the best team in college.
So they didn't lose because of him.
No, not even close. They lost because they couldn't stop Stephen Bennett, or whatever his name is.
Stetson Bennett. Don't roast.
Stetson. Yeah. But I watched that because most quarterbacks struggle against Georgia. And C.J. Stroud played like at a high level. And I saw that game. He's playing against NFL defense right now. Or not NFL defense, but against real players who will be on NFL defenses.
Yeah.
And he's lighting them up. So that game was a real kind of final nail in the coffin for me to show that C.J. Stroud was going to be, or at least has all the capabilities of being a very good NFL quarterback. And I think he will be. And in terms of grade, he's right there with Bryce Young. I don't think there's a big gap at all between them to me. Like if I give Young an A-, I think Stroud's also an A-. And if you go through like a 1 through 10, I would say like Bryce Young is like an 8.5 and Stroud's like an 8.3. Like it's like something like that. Like they're not far off at all. Very close to me.
You ready to talk about some guys with some cannons?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Some rocket launchers?
Yep.
I specifically like rocket launchers who run like tanks.
That's the guy we're going to talk about. Actually, both, honestly.
Anthony, well, yeah,
mostly this guy.
This one can run. Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, number 3 on both our lists. Yep. I really like Will Levis. Or Will Levis, however you want to say it. I do. I like him a lot. But everyone else in this class is just so much better than him. And, he kind of reminds me a little bit of like Sam Howell or one of those quarterbacks. He'll go.
Yes,
he'll either go in the first round or he's going to go in like the third. So, he would have fit right in with last year's group. But I think there's some good things there. So we'll talk about him in a second. But Anthony Richardson. I mean, we talked about what he did at the Combine. He freaking broke the record for which one was it? The vert or
long jump, I think.
The long jump. He broke the NFL record for the long jump. on PFF, they have this athleticism grader. So he's number 1 at the QB position for the 2023 class, which I obviously agree with, but he's number 1 all time at the QB position with a athleticism score of 116.6. So that would be 99.99999th percentile. He's ridiculous. I think the closest comp that he has in the NFL is Josh Allen. Josh Allen came in and he had a rocket for an arm, like an absolute freaking cannon. And like the guy can throw the ball, he can spin it. But like he was throwing 60% completion percentage and a ton of interceptions and things just weren't looking good for him. That's Anthony Richardson. Like he's a project. And he's one of these boomer bust type players where if his athleticism hits and his ability to throw the ball, if it hits and he figures it out, he can be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He can be a Josh Allen. And that's the type of quarterback that he is. I'm not even joking. Like this isn't Josh Allen light. This guy can be Josh Allen. So that obviously gets teams excited because playing Josh Allen is a freaking nightmare. He can run you over, he can outrun you, and he can throw it over your head. And it's like that is something like if I'm an NFL team, like you see Bryce Young, great quarterback. You see CJ Stroud, great quarterback. Those guys are going to be good quarterbacks in the NFL, most likely. They're better bets than Anthony Richardson is. But if you got your britches on, you want to take a big fat old risk. I think Anthony Richardson's ceiling is higher than both of those guys, and I think he could outpace them. Fantasy football-wise, if I knew this kid was going to work out, if I could tell time,
probably be the 101.
He would probably be the 101 because I think he is that good. If you have a really good fantasy team or dynasty team and you're in rookie drafts and you somehow have a top 3 pick in a super flex league, you have to take Anthony Richardson. Like if you have the ability to take that risk, take it. Like I said, he's got elite arm strength. He's freaking built like a tight end, and he's going to run you over running. And he's explosive in pretty much everything that he does, throwing the ball downfield, running, everything. He can freaking take any play to the house, anywhere on the field if he needs to. If you watch his film, it's just incredible. He had some serious concerns passing the ball. His freaking feet are all over the place. That's going to be something that he has to work on because you're always looking at the quarterback's feet. That's the base. That's where 90% of the throw comes from. Well, that's not true. It comes from the arm, but like a lot of the setup comes from the feet, and his footwork just is not great. He's very limited in experience. He's only had 455 dropbacks in college. So that's not great. And he doesn't know how to throw a touch pass. He just throws, like I said about Josh Allen earlier, he just throws absolute rockets straight through your chest. So he's going to have to learn the passing aspect of it and learn how to become better in that aspect of it to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. But I think what he can do rushing is just special. And I think that type of athlete and that type of player should definitely be considered in the top 3. It should be definitely considered in your rookie drafts to be one of those top players. And if I was the Texans, obviously you don't want to go back to the drawing board in 2 years if he doesn't work out. If I was the Texans or I was, Carolina, I would definitely consider this guy. I'd have a meeting. I'd really talk about it. And I hate to be that kind of GM in my mind because I really want to go for the more sure thing, which would be CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. But Anthony Richardson just is a unicorn, and I don't want to be the guy that misses out on the unicorn. So
right.
He's ridiculous, and I love Anthony Richardson, and I'm curious to see how much everyone else loves him in rookie drafts because I will be drafting a lot of him if I can.
Yeah, I think he'll still be picked early, but we'll see. And it's also going to depend where he gets drafted in the NFL. Yeah, I think Richardson he's a guy who
he ran a 4.43. What the heck, bro?
Yeah, that's actually insane. That's the 99th percentile speed.
244 pounds, and he ran a 4.43.
That's like Cam Newton. That's faster than Cam Newton.
That's faster than Cam Newton.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. For fantasy,
Josh Allen, by the way, he is a tank, but he ran a 4.75.
Yeah, I think he's sneaky faster than that, but I don't think he's 4.4. No, that's crazy. No. He's faster than some receivers. He's 250, 6'4". Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do really like Anthony Richardson. I think, maybe it's just because of the Zach Wilson thing, but I am a little scared because it's like he has all these raw abilities, but is he actually a good quarterback?
Yeah,
I don't really know. And could he develop into one? Yes, I think that is very fair. I wouldn't play him year one, but like, what's the difference between him and Trey Lance as prospects? Maybe Richardson's he's a little faster, but Lance ran like a 4.6, and his player comp was Josh Allen too. And I don't know. I think that kind of scares me too, but he's got all the tools to be not only ridiculous, but like the guy. Like, as you said, if you could see the future and you knew that he would work out in the NFL, he would be the number one pick, no questions asked. Mm-hmm. He has the chance to be the QB1 in fantasy.
Now, you know what your ranking is, right?
Yep.
Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, close, safe.
Yep.
You're 101. Rookie draft on the clock right now.
I'm taking Bryce.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. If I need a quarter, yeah. I mean,
you probably got to take the safer bet, but
yep.
I mean, I think this guy is probably, if I had to take a guess, like if he makes it out of the top 3 or 4 in the draft, I don't think Indianapolis is going to draft him. I think they'd be more likely to draft like a Will Levis or something like that. So this is a guy that he could either go top 3 or 4 or just slip to the middle of the draft. Not in terms of like second, third round. I mean like middle of the first round. So it could go either way with this kid, but I think he could be an absolute freaking unicorn, and gets me all freaking hot and bothered, bro.
Yep. Yeah, he has special traits, man. He's got the arm strength. He's got obviously the athletic ability, but as a passer, dude, 53%.
That's bad.
That's awful, man. That's very bad. And I was looking back at Josh Allen. Josh Allen also was not good in college in terms of passing.
No.
But he was slightly better. He was like 56%, had a little bit better of a touchdown interception ratio.
Yeah.
So,
and if Josh Allen didn't work out in the NFL, I don't think there would be comps for people, especially in the NFL, to be like, Anthony Richardson could be like Josh Allen.
They wouldn't be first-round picks.
Like, he wouldn't be a first-round pick. He'd probably be like a second or third, like somebody that you could take a shot on.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so anyway.
I would say Richardson I'd probably give him at like a B.
Where's he going? Where do you think he's going to end up?
What team?
Yeah.
Ooh, I think Seahawks. I think that's a great spot for him.
Behind Geno.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about 2 more guys, and we'll quickly talk about our one more guy, and then we'll talk quickly about our 5th guy because we ran out. We're way over time at this point. So anyway, the last guy is Will Levis. I need to learn how to say that. We both agree with this guy being 4th. PFF has him ranked 2. On their list. So, like Rick was saying, Levis, has some issues, statistically in college. We talked about this pre-show. And he's got the physical measurable 6'4", 229. He is a little bit on the older side. He's 23 years old.
He doesn't have a 40 time.
He does not have a 40 time.
You do have a 40 time?
I do not have a 40 time.
Oh, but his burst score, which usually coincides with it, is in the 87th percentile. So he's relatively fast. I think he would run under a 4.
Yeah. So the last
4.6, 4.7.
The last 2 years in college were his breakout year and his subsequent breakout year. He had 2,800 yards in 2021, 2,400 yards in 2022, 24 passing touchdowns and 19 passing touchdowns. He is a guy that likes to run the ball a little bit. This year he had, I don't know what the numbers, I don't know if this is even true, negative 103 rushing yards.
I think that has to be sacks because
yeah, that's I don't know that that's right, but
yeah, anyway. I think that includes his sacks.
So just ignore that. But he does like to rush. And he will go.
He's a better rusher than Stroud or Young.
Yeah, so he will rush, but he's also got an absolute rocket for an arm, and he's somebody that is polarizing a lot of the draft community. Some people think he's worth a top 15 pick. Some people think he sucks and he should be a second or third round pick. So he's very different in what people think he is, but. Like I said, he might have the strongest arm in the class.
Yeah.
Somebody said he claimed to throw it 80 yards. It's ridiculous. That's unreal.
Yeah, he's got a cannon.
I like this unwavering under pressure. So he delivers strikes.
He faced a lot of pressure at Kentucky.
Yeah, a lot of pressure at Kentucky, which is good. So he can take hits, make good throws still. Stuff like that. And he can't, like I said, he can rush in short yardage situations and stuff like that. So he's not going to blow you off, in terms of like Anthony Richardson can take a 60-yard run to the house. But Will Levis is going to be a guy that can, most likely get short yardage runs on 33.
He is a physical runner too. So like he'll kind of runs like Josh Allen.
Yeah. This article that I read earlier today too said he has what is called a short arm release, which makes touch throws a little bit inconsistent, and he looks uncomfortable altering release. So like if he tries to change it, ball placement's a little spotty, and he is inconsistent in game and out of game. So, he's going to be one of those guys that either hits as an NFL passer or doesn't. And if he doesn't hit, he has no other leg to stand on. So, but I think what makes him unique is his ability to throw the ball. Like he has really, 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 really good arm strength, and that's going to allow him to make elite throws. If the question is, can he make those tight pocket, or tight window passes in the NFL? And I just, I don't know. You have to wait. I guess we have to wait and see on what his ability is going to be. I think if he works out as a passer in the NFL, then I think the rushing will buoy him and he'll get to a point where he can put up good fantasy numbers on a year-to-year basis. But I just, for me, like looking at his film and stuff like that, I don't see what he can do outside of just chucking it. So
yeah, he's got work to do, I think, as a quarterback prospect.
It could end up being one of those situations because he is like, if we put him in last year's class, like he definitely has a much bigger and more, he has way more arm talent than really anyone from last year's class.
Yes.
He's just inconsistent. So I it's going to be tough to kind of peg this one. I could definitely see this particular player because I think, another polarizing player that I saw coming out that had a really big arm was Justin Herbert. And a lot of people either liked him, or didn't like him. And there was fierce discussions about whether he was going to be a good quarterback or a bad quarterback or whatever. He ended up going relatively high in that draft to the Chargers and worked out. And so I think for Will Levis, he's got the ability and he's got the tools to be a really great quarterback in the NFL. It's a matter of if his brain and his, ability to change a little bit of his mechanics catch up so that he can actually become a good quarterback in the NFL. And I do think that for fantasy football, like he could, I remember the Herbert year, he was like a second round pick in super flex leagues. And, which is, he went in the third round in the league I was in, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I was in that league too.
You lucked out. You took him. And so I could see Will Levis being one of these guys that just, you have Stroud, you have Richardson, you have Bryce Young, you have some really good running backs in this class and some decent wide receivers. So like I could see him falling into the second round and being a great pick. So I think he's definitely worth drafting, but I think it depends on landing spot. If he goes to like a team and he's, the anticipation he's going to be a backup, then that obviously stinks. But I actually have no idea where I'm going to look this up while you talk about him, but I want to see where he's being ranked right now.
I don't think him or Richardson starts day one.
Or where he's being drafted. That's what
I don't think him or Richardson is going to start day one, so I think that does hurt their value a little bit. And with the thing with comparing him to Herbert, I do get that, but I look back at Herbert. He actually had a really good
he had a really
last
good
year at college.
Yeah.
32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 66% completion percentage. I don't know. I feel like we kind of just all missed the boat a little bit there with Herbert. Well, Levis though hasn't had one good college season, really.
Yeah.
You could say his junior year he was pretty good, 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. But that's not anything great. And then this past year, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 65% completion percentage. Once again, not that great, kind of mid. Kind of reminds me of Jordan Love maybe coming out, because Jordan Love had all the tools and he just had an awful last year in college where he threw as many interceptions as he did touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
But he was still a first-round pick. He ended up being a late first-round pick. But even Jordan Love, looking back on it, had a monster year as a sophomore. 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. We've never seen Will Levis have a good college football season. He played 4 years. 4 years. He's 23 years old. He never had a good college football season.
Mike Tannenbaum at ESPN has him going 4th overall to Indianapolis.
I saw that. But another draft, look up Bucky Barnes or whatever his name is. Okay. He has him going in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's going to be in that range.
Bucky Brooks. Bucky Barnes is in...
Bucky Barnes.
He's in freaking Captain America.
Yeah. Whatever. Same guy. Anyway. Now, he does have the traditional tools. I think I would have liked him more a couple years ago than I do now, because he does have a great arm strength. He's a mobile quarterback. He's good size. He's got everything you need in that sense. I just don't know how good of a natural quarterback he is. He has bad footwork.
Mm-hmm.
His mechanics are not perfect. His short to intermediate throws aren't always great.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know how good he's able to read defenses either.
Yeah. He's
got a lot of, I think, missing pieces. I wouldn't want him to start right away. I don't think he will start right away. I think he'll probably sit.
Yeah.
But he does have upside. And then for fantasy, he's got upside too because of his rushing. You could even make the argument he has more upside than Young or Stroud again, because he has more rushing upside than those guys and he rushes the ball more.
Yeah.
But he's still like the clear 4th guy to me. I do think he could be a good value in rookie drafts. You are right, especially once you see him going in like the 2nd round. To get a potential starting quarterback there is just really, really good value. And I think there's going to be some drafts where nobody likes him and he's going to fall. But yeah, it will depend on landing spot. It's going to depend on draft capital as well. How high does he actually go? Do the Colts take him at 4? Does he fall to a late 1st, 2nd round?
Yeah.
What happens? I don't think he falls to the 2nd round. I think he's going to the 1st, but I don't know how high. I think he's either going to go 4 or he's going to fall to like somewhere. But I could see like teams like if he falls to the Falcons or the Raiders, I think those teams could take a shot on him. Maybe the Vikings, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So the last guy we are going to talk about, it's actually going to be 2 quick ones, just 1-2 minutes, because we gotta wrap this up. We're an hour in.
Yeah,
these shows, man, they'll be shorter in the future. The quarterbacks get me going. So my 5th is Tanner McKee, and Rick's 5th is Hendon Hooker. Honestly, I don't think it really matters who you put at 5 on anybody's list, because I don't think this person's starting in the NFL. So I will say Tanner McKee he's actually ranked 5th on PFF's website. He's 22 years old, 6'6", 231, does not grade well at all. He has great accuracy, good footwork. Stanford's offense kind of blew schematically, so he brought himself to the next level, situationally and had some success. He is inconsistent when the pocket collapses. He can't evade pressure. He makes a lot of poor decisions at times, and he doesn't have great arm strength. So obviously
a glowing review.
That's a terrible review for the cons, but the only reason why I would say him over Hendon Hooker is because Hendon Hooker is 25 years old.
Yeah.
He is 25. Like, by the time the NFL season starts, I think he's going to be 26. So, like, what are we doing here?
Like, you draft him.
You draft him in your rookie drafts, and he already you have a better chance with Stetson Bennett than Hendon Hooker at this point. Hooker's not a bad quarterback. It's just like the window that you'll get with him, if he even gets a shot in the NFL, is going to be really short. Whereas, like, if Tanner McKee has a chance to do some things in the NFL and he does get a shot and plays well, you are going to at least have him for 2 or 3 more seasons than you would Hendon Hooker. And I just think Hendon Hooker is so old at this point that he could be out of the league in a year. It's so bad. Like, I can't believe, how did you get to 25 years old?
Yeah, I don't know what. So he redshirted and then he transferred twice.
He's a good quarterback. He had some success in college. Statistically, the last 2 years he had better numbers than Will Levis.
Yep.
So, like, there's some things there, but he's just old. So
yeah, I don't.
If 25 is old, I'm 29. So
I remember in the super early portion, I think before you did your scouting, you're like, "Oh, what about Hendon Hooker?" And I was like throwing up in my mouth after you said that, because because of his age, he's 25 years old, going to be 26, I think, by at least the end of the year. But I do think he at least has an NFL career. I think he's going to be at least a good backup because he can run the offense really well in Tennessee. He's actually a pretty good pocket passer. He only had 5 interceptions in the last 2 years, 68 and 69% completion percentage. His stats are really, really good. His player comp is Geno Smith. I feel like that's kind of a decent comp. He's going to do what the coach asks him to. He's going to run the offense. He's going to make the first read, and he'll make an accurate throw. There's nothing special about him, and he's 25 years old, so he should not be a first-round pick by any means. But I could see him being like a late second, early third, and could have an NFL career behind him. He doesn't have any ceiling.
Yeah.
And plus with quarterbacks, with pocket passers too, like he could play till he's like 34, 35.
Yeah, I guess. 10 years.
Yeah, so I mean,
I guess they say, you get your quarterback for 10 years. It's so funny. By the end of his rookie contract, he'll be like 30.
Yeah, that actually is crazy. That's crazy. 29, 30 years old.
I totally see this dude, like, everyone's going to be like, oh, he's the 5th best quarterback, and then he just slips into, like, the 6th round.
Yeah, I mean, that could happen.
So, another guy that's 25 is Stetson Bennett, so I take that back. He's older. Oh, God. He ran a 4.67. That's kind of creepy.
Bennett did?
Stetson Bennett, yeah.
Interesting.
It's interesting. But anyway, yeah, after Levis, like,
huge drop
it's a huge drop off. Like, I think McKee has some, like, upside. And Hendon Hooker, I think, has some upside. If you're looking for a quarterback in the later rounds, I do think, like, Stetson Bennett would provide some
like
upside.
A 4th rounder.
Yeah, and but outside of that, there's really nobody that I think is going to have NFL success outside of the 4 guys that we talked about at the beginning. So not every draft class can you have 4 quarterbacks start in the NFL in year one, but we'll somehow find a way.
Yeah, well, so it's hard based on percentages. The top 4 guys, not all 4 of them will work out. Yeah, so if you had to guess, who do you think? Is it probably just Young and Stroud that have the safest floors?
Yeah, I would say Young and Stroud are probably going to be the ones that work out. I think Richardson will most.
He's the biggest wild card.
He's the wild card, and I think he'll most likely not work out. If I'm being completely honest with you, as much as I think he's a unicorn and he's great, no one out there can say this guy's going to be good. You're taking a risk on taking him in rookie drafts or in the actual NFL draft. So there's massive risk that comes along with him. And Levis, I think, is a little bit. I actually think he's slightly less risky than Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
But he's not less risky enough to
where it's worth it.
Yeah, where it's worth it. Yeah. So like you're taking just as much you're taking slightly less risk by taking Will Levis than you are Anthony Richardson. So
if you're gonna take a risk, you might as well take the guy with like the highest ceiling.
With the highest ceiling. Yeah. So anyway, but they're your top 5 rookie quarterbacks for this year: Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and Tanner McKee / Hendon Hooker. Leave in the comments how to say Will Levis, whatever it is, because I have no idea.
Will Levis, I think.
I'm going to find out in the NFL draft when Robert Kraft. Never mind. See you later, guys.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.